So where we are now is with the last stage of the uncommon ngondro. So the common ngondro with the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, and then the uncommon ngondro with the refuge and bodhicitta first. And then we did the purification with Vajrasattva, and then we did the mandala offering, and now we're doing Guru Yoga. So Guru Yoga is perhaps one of the most important of all of the Tantra practices. And it's used in all of the traditions, and it's highly revered. It is even said that you can attain enlightenment strictly from doing Guru Yoga. So it's a very, very important part of our practice. So what we're talking about here is connection, in a way. What we're doing is we're making a connection with the lineage that has enabled us to receive these teachings, all the way going back to Shakyamuni Buddha. And if you think about all of the different people who have been involved in order for these teachings to come down to us. So we want to develop a sense of connection with that lineage, with the Lama who's actually providing the teachings for us, and that kind of a connection. And also with our innate Buddha nature. The very sense of suchness, if you will, that resides within us all, that enables us to actually achieve that enlightenment. So all of those are forms of connection, if you will. So that's one way of thinking about Guru Yoga, is that it provides a way to connect at different levels. It's also a way of expressing our sense of faith and devotion. And so as we do the practice, there is, as a part of this, a sense of faith and devotion in the practices that we're learning and the ones that we will learn. And that, too, is a form of connection, if you will. So all that we have learned, all that we will learn. I wanted to give you a short quote from Shabkar, who is a very famous individual yogi in Tibet that wandered around and wrote many of his thoughts down. There's a nice large book, a little bit like Milarepa in that regard. And he wrote, "No matter in what direction I go, I think of the Master. No matter in what solitary place I stay, I think of the Master. No matter what signs I see, I think of the Master. Always, at all times, I think of my authentic Master." And I think that captures a little bit of the sense of what we're talking about here with the Guru Yoga practice. Another one, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, gave one of the most concise and meaningful versions of Guru Yoga in a little book that he wrote that's no longer available, although you might be able to find it somewhere. It's just called Guru Yoga. And it's very nice. And in that, he describes Guru Yoga as the union of transcendent wisdom with our Guru, our own Buddha nature. And so even further, there's the sense of realizing our Buddha nature as being our own inner teacher, our own innate teacher. So sometimes we refer to we talk about our root Lama. If you don't have someone that is your actual root Lama, then Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, is in effect the default Guru root Lama for everybody. So there's, again, this sense of connection specifically with him. And in the book, in the preface to the Guru Yoga book of Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, there's a statement, Guru Yoga is the quickest, most effective method for attaining enlightenment. And so it's a very powerful practice. And so we see our Guru as the Buddha. Okay? So we imagine at least that person is the actual Buddha, because the Buddha is not sitting here. Okay? So the Lama becomes the representative, if you will, of the Buddha in human form in our lifetimes. And so as we do this practice, one of the things that we do is realize that our mind is none other than the mind of the Guru. That we merge our mind with that, like water into water. Okay, they become the same. And there are 3 main parts to the practice. The first one is the visualization. So there's a visualization part that we do. And then there are prayers that we recite. And then something called the 4 empowerments, which we will go through. And in many forms, it also includes a lineage prayer. So there's a prayer that goes back and lists the various beings, the lamas and so forth, that have been in the lineage from a particular starting point and down to today. And they oftentimes recite the names of those. We'll go through, there's actually one in the book. So we'll take a look at that so we can see what that looks like. And so that is often memorized by the lamas as a part of it. This particular practice that we're doing for this doesn't have a lineage prayer that we are reciting, but we wanted you to be familiar with that as well. And then the visualization is often in the form of a refuge tree. So the refuge tree that we used when we took refuge, we can use that same refuge tree as the visualization with Padmasambhava at the center of that, or our Lama has Padmasambhava at the center of that. You can visualize him alone or with his consort, Yeshe Tsogyal. And I brought with me a statue here. So we have Padmasambhava and we have his consort, Yeshe Tsogyal, together sitting in union. And so this is one of the visualizations that you can use when you're doing this practice. Or you can do it as a Thangka painting, which is a little bit more complete with other beings surrounding and so forth. But that's basically the visualization associated with this, not particularly complicated. You get a nice statue or a picture of Padmasambhava, then that is very helpful. And so then we invite Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, by reciting the 7-line prayer. And so that is a part of this. And we do that with a sense of devotion, a sense of connection with our Lama as Guru Rinpoche, and with the lineage going back to the Buddha. And so we show this sense of devotion and respect for all of those who came before us. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche wrote this: "Consider that outwardly the Guru is the union of the 3 jewels. His body is the Sangha, his speech is the Dharma, and his mind is the Buddha. Inwardly, he embodies the 3 roots. His body is the Lama, his speech is the Yidam or deity, and his mind is the Dakini. Secretly, the Guru is the union of the 3 Kayas. His body is the Nirmanakaya, his speech is the Sambhogakaya, and his mind is the Dharmakaya. The Guru is also the union of all deities, for there is not a single deity who is not the display of the lotus-born Guru. In the unsurpassable Buddha field of he is the primordial Buddha Samattabhadra. He is also Vajradhara or Dorje Chang. And Dorje Chang is the Tibetan for Vajradhara. In the Sambhogakaya Buddha fields, he is Vajrasattva and the Buddhas of the 5 Buddha families. In the Nirmanakaya Buddha fields, he is Buddha Shakyamuni and the lotus-born Guru Padmasambhava. In brief, there is no manifestation of the Buddha that is not inseparably one with Guru Rinpoche. And so to pray to him is the same as praying to all of the Buddhas. Okay? So they're really all represented in Padmasambhava. So that's part of the way we think about it when we're doing the first part, the visualization aspect. The next part then is to recite the mantra. And so the mantra is Om Ah Hong Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Hong. It is pronounced Om Ah Hong Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hong by Tibetans, so slight difference there. The Vajra is Benza and the Padma is Peme. And so there's some little differences. The Hom is Hong. And so slight differences in the actual pronunciation. But you can do it either way. That's not real critical. The Om Ah Hom represents the 3 Kayas. as well as pure forms of body, speech, and mind of the Buddhas. The Vajra, Benza, or Dorje, this piece here, in Tibetan refers to a diamond, or the ability to cut through other substances, because the diamond is the strongest natural substance. But it also means the unchanging transcendent wisdom. Because it is so solid, it is unchangeable. Indestructible is a word often used here. So the transcendent wisdom. The guru is the teacher, the teacher, but also means heavy or weighty. So it's like the most weighty of precious of substances is gold. And so it's like that sense of heavy, weighty in terms of being of great value. Padma, or Peme, means lotus and represents wisdom. Guru Padma refers to the lotus-born guru. So Padma is lotus, so guru, the lotus-born guru, lotus-born teacher, Padmasambhava. Siddhi means accomplishments, and there are ordinary siddhis, which are kind of like magical powers, if you will. And there is the supreme siddhi, which is itself enlightenment. So ordinary siddhis might be things like wealth, well-being, and those kinds of things, as well as the magical powers. Hum represents the request for the guru to come and bless us with all the siddhis, both ordinary and supreme. We should not be trying to achieve ordinary kinds of siddhis, particularly magical power kinds of things. If they happen, they happen. But the Buddha said not to try and achieve those things, but rather to focus on the supreme siddhi of enlightenment itself. And if in the process some of these other things manifest, then that's fine. But even if we get them, we should not be displaying them for others. We can become attached to our own ego in the process of doing things like that. So really, they're pretty much downplayed in the tradition, even though they are mentioned fairly often. And so the third part then is, after reciting the mantra, is the 4 empowerments. And so these are blessings from the guru. The first one is called the vase empowerment, and typically when we do the vase empowerment, when done as a part of an empowerment, it's a vase that has water in it, and you receive the water and you take it in your mouth, and any remainder is wiped across the crown of your head, and then you have received this particular empowerment as a part of that. Symbolically, it purifies our body. And it also then plants the seed of attaining nirmanakaya, the physical manifestation of the Buddha, and it empowers us to do the generation stage practices. Now, I'm going to list what these empower us to do, but I want to point out that the actual empowerments vary by different tradition. And so you will see in some cases that what's being empowered is listed as something a little bit different than what I'm going to share with you today. But this is a fairly common one within the Nyingma tradition, and since this teaching comes from the Nyingma tradition, then using that particular one here today. And that also establishes the union of appearances and emptiness. And if you recall early in the class, we talked about appearance emptiness in conjunction with the path of individual liberation. And so that's also a part of what is being empowered here for us in this particular empowerment. And so what actually happens, we visualize a white light from the forehead of Padmasambhava that comes into our forehead, and then it comes into our body and completely fills our body with this white light. In doing that, that is what actually provides the empowerment and purifies our body as a part of that. So it grants us the empowerment. The second empowerment is called the secret empowerment, and it purifies our speech and plants the seed of Sambhogakaya. the enjoyment body or the spirit aspect of the Buddha, the rainbow body aspect, another way to think about it. And it empowers us in this case to do the completion stage practices. So these are like the 6 yogas of Naropa, who are very similar kinds of practices. And as a part of that, it establishes the union of luminosity and emptiness, or luminous emptiness, which is our own Buddha nature. The technical definition of Buddha nature is luminous emptiness. And we also saw this earlier in the class as well as a part of what we were studying. And in this case, the actual empowerment happens. We visualize a red light coming from the throat of Padmasambhava into our throat, and then it too fills our entire body with this red light, and that is what purifies our speech and also then grants the actual empowerment. The third empowerment is called the wisdom empowerment, and it purifies our mind. And along with that, then also plants the seed of the Dharmakaya, the truth body. It's not an actual body, although we sometimes personify it in the form of Vajradhara or Samattabhadra and so forth. It empowers us to do the karma mudra practices in this case. These are the advanced level practices using the actual sexual yoga, where you are in union with a physical human being in doing those practices. And it establishes the union of bliss emptiness. And bliss emptiness is the goal of many of the practices done in the Path of Tantra. And the actual process then is we visualize from the heart of Padmasambhava a blue light from the Hong. And we have I didn't mention before, a white Ah at the forehead, a red white Om at the forehead, a red Ah at the throat, and a blue Hong at the heart. And so we visualize from this Hong, the blue Hong, this blue light radiates out into our heart, and then it fills our body with this blue light, and that purifies our mind as well as granting the empowerment. The fourth empowerment is called the word empowerment, or sometimes just the fourth empowerment. And that empowerment purifies all subtle obscurations. So if we haven't gotten them through the other 3 empowerments, this one kind of finishes off any of these, although there's also a version, the actual version of this that I do has 5 of these, and so it goes beyond to another level of habitual tendencies as well as the subtle obscurations here. But in this case, it purifies the subtle obscurations, it plants the seed of Swabhavakakaya, and it empowers us to do the Dzogchen practices. It also establishes the union of awareness emptiness. And so when we get to the Dzogchen level, we'll talk about pure awareness, or Rigpa, and the awareness emptiness. And so this one comes from a red Hri at the navel. And the navel is actually located just a little below our actual navel, and kind of the lower abdomen, if you will. And so there is this Hri syllable there, in this case red. And so again, a red light comes out from that into our navel chakra. And in the process, it does the purification of all subtle obscurations and grants us the empowerment. So this then is followed by a meditation on emptiness, sometimes done very short, but in this case, since this is the main practice, then this is done as a longer meditation at this point. So we visualize that the Padmasambhava, and if he's with his consort, both merge inseparably into us, and then we rest in emptiness. As we have this feeling of devotion that arises when we arise from having completed this practice, and remembering then the presence of the Guru. We imagine then the Guru is residing just above our head at all times in the day. And then at night, according to Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, one of the things that we can do is imagine that he merges down into our body, and he becomes very small, like just the size of your thumb, the end of your thumb. And he sits on a 4-petaled red lotus at our heart chakra. Okay? So at night when you go to bed, you can imagine that he just kind of comes down through the central channel to the heart chakra in a very small form and sits on this red lotus with 4 petals and rests there during the night. And as he does that, this light radiates out through our body, it radiates outside throughout the room, and the entire universe is filled with this nice red glow. And then that light returns back to our heart, and then Guru Rinpoche dissolves into the light and we fall asleep. Okay? And fall asleep. And if you're still not quite falling asleep, then he says, well, just repeat it again. The light going out to the universe and then coming back in and falling asleep. So you can repeat that over and over, a little bit like counting sheep, I suppose, as we go through this practice. But that then can help you in the process of going to sleep. Then in the morning, when you wake up, what he suggests doing is that you imagine Guru Rinpoche then rising back up from our heart up to above our head. Okay? So that's kind of a nice way to put together the daytime and the nighttime practice of Guru Yoga, if you will. So that's a short description of how we do this really, really wonderful practice of Guru Yoga.